All right. Good evening, everyone. This is a call to order for the Ad Hoc District-Wide Branding Initiative Committee meeting on Thursday, December 1st, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. at Central High School. I would like to first thank all of our staff for joining us this evening, to our interim superintendent, Miss Alicia Perrin, and to everyone that's here. At this moment, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for September 21st, 2022.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any questions? Any abstentions? Hearing none. The meeting minutes have been approved. At this moment, we're gonna start the discussion and possible action on the process of inviting teachers and students to view the logo before its finalized stage. At our last meeting, we talked about, we narrowed it down to what we have within the packet. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Henry to kind of talk about any of the adjustments that were made. And then board members, committee members, we could talk about how we want to move in the next phase of getting a listening or viewing session for teachers and staff. Ms. Henry?
Great. Hi, everyone. So the black and white logo is the basics of what we've settled on with the students that show the diversity and the different, they show them as people versus what we had originally thought of as like a Ferris wheel. Mm-hmm. So we added the hair, we added the smiles to actually make the figures look more human. We updated the G because I remember Joe didn't like the shape of the original G. So that seems to have been in good place. So the black and white is the more concrete part of our logo that we have now. Mm-hmm. So next steps, we have discretion with colors. So when I met with Ms. Perrin to start introducing what we're working on, she was open to the idea of switching up the red and blue colors. And she preferred a green and gold or green and orangey yellow color. So one of the...
Is that this one?
Yes, one of the examples has the sort of...
Okay.
Yes, perfect. Feedback from you on those, the sort of tones you were looking for. Do you like it? Is it bright enough?
I would like it to be a little bit brighter.
Yep.
But the tones are in the right family.
Okay. So it's my understanding that now that we have this as our set design, we can play with color as much as we want to. So Jeff and I can sit with Photoshop and we can switch out the tones. We can add different colors, all that sort of thing, because the black component is there.
Yes.
So we removed the Every Kid Every Day. This color one does in fact have the schools represented with the various colors. We went with a gray silver for Fairchild Wheeler because they do have multiple colors on their campus. But Bassick Central, Harding, and BMA are all represented in the colors that the kids are wearing. Mm-hmm. So at this stage, I'm open to any feedback from the board. And then if we're ready to present it to the public, we can certainly have focus groups, get feedback from them. I don't know if you want to open color up to a vote from people or feedback from people, or if we can sort of say, this is what we're working towards, this is what the board likes, and then just take feedback from there.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to open it up to committee members. I know that you guys are seeing if you look in your packets, there's different versions of it, but this is kind of like the landing one that we're focusing on. I'll ask Ms. Castillo, any thoughts, concerns to what Ms. Perrin or Ms. Henry has said?
Hi, everybody. I just love it. I think that the bones of it are so good, and I think it's so well done, the structure of the actual logo itself, that I'm open to, whatever color play we agree on. I think that the choices that were made for the students and the clothes that they're wearing, I think that was a very smart choice to represent all of the different high schools in the district. I immediately thought that when I looked at the kids, you know, the little one in the middle, the girl with the red. I graduated from Central, so I felt really connected.
Pause, we are the color, Hardin in the middle. We can't be giving Central all that type of love.
You know, and
I
all
too am a
fairness,
graduate.
Oh,
Harding has two colors. You know, because we have the gold and blue. Central, we only have the red, you know, so I feel like it's a fair choice. But
That's it, black and white, black and white. We're moving to black and white.
yeah, but I just love it. I think it's really very beautiful. I'm so proud of the work that we've done to kind of to get it to this space. It's so clean. I can see in all the different examples that are provided here, you know, how it interacts with different spaces, different backgrounds, different colors. And that's what we wanted. I think that was definitely a top priority is producing a logo that that features well on billboards or on a mug or on, you know, a brochure. And I really think that this logo does that so well. So thank you. This is wonderful.
Awesome. Mr. Benahan,
not me.
I know you're driving, so if you want to wait till you come in, go ahead.
I'm listening, just in case that connection is not so well because I'm driving. Ms. Henry, what did you try the picture I sent to you, how they look like?
So the tricky thing with the picture you sent is that it's copyrighted. We can't take that image and use it as a logo. So we would have to have the designer recreate those similar images if that's what you would like to do. I like the image
no, I really understand you cannot use that, but I send it to you like something similar to whoever do the you know, the graphic, you know, trying to do something similar like that, not to use that same picture. No, we don't
Okay.
we don't want problems. That's why I sent it to you, you know, months ago
Right.
to see how it look like.
I think the concern is that the image you sent is incredibly detailed, and so scaling it to be a logo on a piece of paper or a mug or something like that, those details will get lost. And so the characters that are currently being used are very simplified so that you can shrink them down and you can still understand the message that they're doing. I will happily ask the designer to get the characters to be more, to emulate the image that you sent, if you would like.
Yeah, but I don't know if we have time because, you know, I really sent that a long time ago. I don't want this situation to be behind. I don't know what Ms. Brown said. We had to be waiting again and waiting again. So I thought that you're gonna bring that at least or send it to the package so we can see how they look like.
The good thing about this, Albert, is because where we currently are with this particular logo, I mean, she can, you know, see if something comes through, but I just want to make sure we're all in agreement with this particular one before we start doing an open group for people to start viewing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm okay. But
Okay.
I really I see everything. I thought we are gonna see what I sent to see how they look like, and I don't want it to stay behind. But you guys decide to make the vote with this one. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it. This I can tell you right now. Because I want to see something different. But it look like it's still everything's still the same. You keep doing the same, and I feel everything's still the same. So, question before because I don't want the connection go back. Did the parents and the students be involved on this and on this pictures? You know, the one you show us now.
So Albert, that's the next step. The next step is for us to start talking about what that looks like for parents and students. Is that a survey? Is that them coming in and we put the images in front of them and they talk about what they see? Does it reflect them? So that's what we're going to talk about now. So you guys can, you know, give Miss Henry some suggestions, but I'm gonna see if you've done this before. If Miss Henry would like to, you know, maybe talk us through the process that she think will be best, and then we can chime in and see if that makes any sense for what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so floor is back to.
Oh, Jeff.
Okay, Jeff is gonna share.
What I would recommend is that we use Parent Square and put together a poll. And then what we can do is we can actually send it out to you could literally do staff, students, and parents, or in whatever order you want. But that way you can get, for lack of a better way of putting it, a virtual focus group, and it's going directly to those people so that you can get the feedback that you're looking for. That's my recommendation, because I think that you could have like an open viewing session, but it's only going to give you a very specific amount of
Right.
population, whereas people can literally just click on their phone and say, oh, this, and then if you want, you can even go to the degree of getting feedback if that was something that you wanted.
Okay.
I completely agree. I think that's a perfect suggestion. I would potentially, and it's open to the board, based on the feedback from the parents, students, and teachers, if there is disagreement, that's when we bring people in for a focus group in person. So if we send this out on Parent Square and people rave about it and love it, and it's overwhelmingly glowing reviews,
Mm-hmm.
and then the board's ready to move forward, then that's a nice, easy win. If we get feedback saying this really doesn't represent our district, you guys have missed this, you've missed that, then we can bring
The actual.
consult.
Okay. What do you, Ms. Castillo and Mr. Benahan, what do you guys think on the suggestions of having it virtual via Parent Square, and sending it out via like a poll, and then taking it from there?
I love that. I think that's a really great solution just to get some preliminary feedback. It also starts, spreading a little bit of awareness that this is, some work that we're doing right now. I think it's hard to look at the logo and not feel like it really represents the district well. So I'm looking forward to see what the poll says about it.
Mr. Benahan, thank you, Ms. Castillo. Mr. Benahan?
I really am not gonna say too much comments and nothing like that, because if I was waiting for the image and to see how they look like, I don't want to keep waiting for another one. So I don't want to say nothing. Just keep forward with you guys. What you have to do. So let's keep forward. I don't want to keep waiting for no more.
Okay. All right. So I think Jeff and Ms. Henry, I think that is a good start. So anyone would, I don't want to make the motion. So just, we want to make sure that we can have directors. So Ms. Castillo, would you like to make the motion in order for this to take place?
Yeah, is the motion to put it into a
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the motion should be to put it on Parent Square for a poll, and then do we have to mention this? Yeah, let's mention the second part as a part of it as well. If the feedback is not what we expected and we have concerns, then we'll do a focus group as like an individual focus group after.
If I could just ask.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So when you solicit for feedback to the parents, you want to choose a specific area. So is it students? Is it parent? You just want to say that. And then if I may be so bold, determine exactly how you're going to ask the question. So is it just like a thumbs up, thumbs down? Like you got to think about, are they rating it? So just, what type of way do you want to consider? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's talk about that before we even put a motion on there. How do we want to receive the feedback? Jeff suggested that thumbs up, it could be a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Oh, I'm not trying to drive, just saying.
No. I don't do them. So I'm just giving them an idea of how we may receive it. So it's really up to discussion. And Ms. Perrin, feel free to jump in, or anyone. Ms. Castillo? How do you want to construct it?
I think we want to ask, I think we want to stay away from questions like, do you like the logo? I think we should ask, do you feel that this logo represents the district well? Because if you asked, do you like the logo, then it's subject to individual taste. And we've all had our input here with individual tastes. It's really a matter of, does it reflect the district that we serve, and are people going to feel represented by it? So I think maybe formulating the question to say, do you think this logo is a good reflection of the Bridgeport School District, Bridgeport Public School District, and then yes or no. And then, if the data comes in over 50%, which would be the you know,
Mhm.
at least half. Then that brings us into a majority, and that would be satisfying.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. I know Mr. Benningham is making his way in. So anyone else, any thoughts?
I think one of our first Parent Square communications would be that an explanation of the branding committee and how we arrived at this. And we discuss how we included the wavy line for being on the Long Island Sound, how we included the lighthouse and the P.T. Barnum.
Description.
Right, just so that people understand the process. And we can be explicit in saying the colors represent the 5 high schools. So I think part of what we need to do first is an informational communication prior, and then let them know your opinion will be solicited in our next post. I think it's
So
important.
two.
Yeah. And then people can have the response, does this reflect our district? After they have an explanation of the details.
I agree. Ms. Perrin or anyone would like to add to what Ms. Henry has mentioned?
I do think it's a good idea to be able to explain how this all originated to the group, because they may say, okay, well, this is where we started, so maybe we want to look at something else. But I think giving the history, and they understand that it's representative of the multilinguals, of the different cultures here, of our high schools, of the things that make us Bridgeport, I think it's extremely important. And by giving them some history and then allowing them to go and take a look at it, I think that's a great idea. I think when it comes down to I agree with Ms. Castillo when she says to stay away from like, okay? 'Cause
Yes.
like is not.
It's not an open-ended, like.
Correct. So I don't know if you want to look at like a Likert scale where they're going to rate, the 0 to 5 sort of thing, 5 being the highest, 0 being the lowest, is somewhere in between. Because if you get a lot of 3s, then that might make you think, well, maybe they really don't like it. And maybe we should revisit some other things. I wouldn't give too much opportunity for too many open-ended, because then you're going to get a ton of different responses and things. So I think we have to isolate those pieces from responses.
If I just may ask a question, when we formulate the wording of that and we have the brief together that describes it, so we read a brief and it says, these are the aspects that we put into it. The other thing is, since you typically only get one shot to really get their attention for stuff like this, just the nature of how that stuff goes, are you going to solicit for feedback? We just need to know in terms of like when we go to capture it, you know what I mean?
So.
'Cause that can get out of control. That's the only reason why I'm saying is that it can be too much feedback, you know what I mean? Like if you get like where they can type stuff in a box.
Oh, no, I think we should leave it to like a scale, like what you
Okay,
said.
that's what I.
When I was saying open-ended, I was like, don't, for the yes or no,
Yeah.
like, let's not do the yes or no. I was agreeing with, yeah.
Great.
But no, the scale I think is going to be beneficial, because at least that lets us, give us an idea of where they are landing with it, and will
Right.
also encourage us whether or not we need to have that focus group.
Right. So if we have lots of 3s, we
Then
do
we
a
need-
focus group.
Yeah.
Whereas if we've got lots of 4s and 5s, then we know that people are on board.
Mr. Benham?
But I say, I was waiting for hearing what you mentioned, how they look like. I don't want to keep.
I can go back and ask the designers to edit the students.
Just you decide you
And-
the chair you want to.
It's for you guys.
And just a quick comment. Albert, I think I remember, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a conversation about the faces, and I think we landed on just adding a smile, just to keep the details of the face simplistic enough, but to still allude to happiness, because I think that's what you had mentioned that you liked about the picture that you sent, was that it showed like this happiness, of being in school. And so we kind of landed on just adding a smile to all the kids, because that would, satisfy that without adding too much detail and making it,
Personalized.
hard to see if it was like small scaled or what have you. Do you recall that?
I remember that, Ms. Castillo. I know what that I said, and I remember that, but I just trying to be, I'm talking about the step right, Ms. Henry, I'm trying to see how they look like.
I can certainly ask them. I can ask them, and ideally we get a quick turnaround. And then if we get the feedback that gives us a 3 and tells us, hey, the community's not involved with this, then we could potentially use the new design as part of the conversation.
That could be.
Yeah.
Would that work for everyone?
I think so.
Yeah? Okay, so yeah, so that's what we'll do.
Okay.
So back to the previous part. So we do want a scale. We do want the description.
Mhm.
I believe, the description is gonna go first before we introduce the actual logo. Or both at the same time.
So, I mean, I would recommend putting the brief, talking about what the logic was that went into it. If you make it too wordy, people tend to tune out real fast. So I would just bullet point the main things like,
Okay.
the diversity,
Sure.
the language inclusiveness and that type of thing in there and say, and here's what we have, or something to that effect. If
Okay.
you want to keep it brief, but poignant, you know what I mean? So.
And then put the image in that communication.
Yeah, and you would do it in an order of, because some people may just read it and then look at the logo. Other people may just want to look at the logo, but that way you've made it apparent and provided the information in one concise thing. Because if you send multiple ones, typically they're like, oh, I didn't see the other one, or you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
All right, that's totally fine. So Jeff, I'll work with you
Yep.
on getting the bullet points. And then as far as sharing,
Which one?
exactly.
I honestly think it was the one that, I don't know if it was this one. Was this the one? I think this was the one.
With the green and the gold.
Yeah, that was up there, the big,
Yep.
yeah. Yes, I believe this was the one because I think once we start moving it around, like that can be done afterwards. I think we just need one image to capture their attention for the most part.
And we can, like Dr. Henry said, modify the colors thematically as.
Right. The other option would be to do the black, but use the school colors in there so that there is no background color. But it's up to you.
I don't know. I kind of like I
Perfect.
feel like they're gonna look like, oh, it's, they're gonna give us a boring,
Okay.
type. At least they have an idea of what it's potentially gonna look
Perfect.
like.
Yeah.
So they're not just like breezing over it.
Got it. So this one,
Yeah.
yep,
Yes,
perfect.
yeah, so you could put them back up for me. Thank you.
Are we going with the one that has the green and yellow background?
Yes. Because it was either that or the black and white without the colors in the background. But if you want something to be eye-catching, yeah.
That
If you
one.
want it to be eye-catching and get them to want to participate, this may be the best bet
Mm-hmm.
because it'll catch their eye with the color versus being black and white.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I agree. I think that, if we're introducing a logo, I think it's best to show the logo in its fullest expression,
Okay.
I agree. I think I can't tell because I don't know if it's my screen, but is public schools in green text on the bottom?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. I
There's one with blue too.
Mhm.
yeah, I like the blue because
And-
it pops better, but I'm okay with the green if it was a little brighter of a green.
Brighter.
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 Yeah, it gets a little lost. It looks black almost at first glance. Now, I'm looking at it
Sure.
very closely now, so I can see that it is green. And I like the implication of green with the Park City because,
Mhm.
parks
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and are grass and trees. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I guess our thoughts is before, so let's go over real quickly. It's first to have a description, not a long description, bullet points to really highlight the major key components of the logo. And then from there, are we asking a question?
So then we can ask them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being, we love it, this is our next logo. 1 being like, no, let's revisit.
And then anything in between.
In between. And then if we have, based on the feedback from students, parents, and teachers
Mhm.
or staff, if we land around the 3s, where we're still open to the conversation, then we'll visit the conversation of adding the details to the students, like Mr. Banahan has suggested.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask the designer to do that now
Anyway,
just to get the ball rolling. And then, yeah, so based on the feedback from the community, we can make a decision there.
how does everybody feel about that? Thumbs up, Mr. Banahan? Mr. Benahan's okay with it. So I'm just gonna, at this moment, and Jeff, that's all, we covered all the main points.
Yes, thank you very much. Yep.
So I'm gonna entertain a motion to incorporate all those details to have the next steps be made. So Ms. Castillo or Mr. Benahan would like to make that motion.
I will make the motion.
Go
So I would like to make a motion to post the prospective logo on Parent Square with a description summarizing the elements of the logo and a rating of 1 to 5 scale, with 1 being the worst and 5 being the best, as an expression to capture the data. That is the motion.
To go to students.
To,
staff.
mention to where it's gonna go. Just add
Yes.
on to that.
To be posted on Parent Square for both students and families or parents. I'm gonna say families.
Guardian.
Yep.
Guardian.
Yeah, we'll say families so because it encompasses parents and guardians
Mhm.
And staff.
Staff.
and staff. Yes, and staff.
All right, I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Did you? Aye?
No.
Any opposed?
Same.
Any abstentions? Mr. Benahan abstains. Motion passes. So you have your work set cut out for you.
Jan, we'll talk.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
And what we'll do is we'll come back at, the next
data.
meeting with data.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you all.
Well, I'm wondering, we may need you to stay
Okay,
for the other agenda item. One more.
no problem.
I have one
Thank
quick
you.
question before we move on to
Yes.
the next agenda item. Who is going to be responsible for drafting the description?
Miss Henry.
Jeff and I will do it. Well, I will go through the steps that we went through to land on this logo, where we really discussed the lighthouse and the identity of the kids and the color choices for representation of the high schools, how we talked about Bridgeport with bridges and being on the sound. So I'll lay that out and I'll share it with Jeff. I'd be happy to share it with Ms. Perrin if she would like to review it prior to it going out.
Yeah.
Feedback. But since I've been part of the process since the beginning, I think I could lay it out pretty clearly for people.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Mhm.
I just want to be
Do we
clear
have a
about.
target date?
So, that's a good question. We don't have a target date.
Could we
can I
say
just-
that?
I think it would be great to start the new year off with, with a new logo. I mean, if we could get it done, I don't know if that's
Fine.
reasonable.
I can draft the description tomorrow and share it with Jeff. Jeff, I don't know what your schedule's like tomorrow, but ideally, if we send it out Monday or Tuesday next week, then how long do you want to leave the poll open for? If we leave it open for 2 or 3 days, then we could close it by Friday.
I want to leave it open a little longer.
A little, I would say a little long, because we are pressing in December, we are in December, but like, I don't know how many people can actually like open it.
Fine.
So,
We've had our, just if I may,
go ahead, hold on 1 minute.
we've had our best, the way we typically would do it is you do a 2-week span of time. And then what you do is we send it on a Monday, we send it on the Friday, and then we send it maybe like 2 days before it's going to go. And that's how we've gotten our best outcome.
All right.
Just so you know.
So if I write it tomorrow, do you have time tomorrow to take a look?
Oh, I'll make the time. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the goal would be send it out Monday, which is, I'm sorry, I don't have my calendar. The
5th.
Thank you. The 5th. We'll
Target.
leave it open until the 19th.
Right before the Christmas holiday.
Right.
Yeah. When
Does
do
that
we
work?
go on break?
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be the 19th.
yeah,
The last day of school is the 23rd, Ms. Castillo.
Perfect. So the week of
Yeah.
winter break.
Sure. So it'll be open the 5th to the 19th, which gives the 2-week window.
23rd is
Last day.
for school.
Last day.
Before
Holiday.
holiday.
Okay,
Great.
what do we think? That's good?
I love it.
Okay, good? Okay,
So Ms. Perrin, we will send you the final draft. Well, or a draft
draft, yeah.
tomorrow
Okay,
after we connect and wait for your approval and then send it out Monday.
okay. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. And moving on, our next agenda item is discussion and possible action to implement a district-wide campaign about digital wellness. This was your agenda item, Ms. Castillo, so I know that while we have Ms. Henry, she's the better person, maybe to designing and things like that, but then we'll have to talk to the rest of Ms. Parent's team to start the campaign and what that will look like. So I'll turn this over to you for your ideas and thoughts on it. Go ahead.
Sure. So, I know that this is an ad hoc committee. And I believe that the central function of it, the reason why it was born in the first place was for the logo. Is that correct?
Yes, and messaging within the district, yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Well, last year we ran a campaign on attendance, which I think was very important. I think we saw improvements in attendance over the past year. And I thought overall it was a successful campaign. I would like to recommend maybe changing the target campaign this year to focus on digital wellness, because we've seen a lot of things in the past year. As a community, recently we experienced a loss of an alum to suicide, and it was a very social media involved loss. And so I think that if we start teaching students early how to be responsible with their phones, how to be socially proactive, how to be responsible digital citizens and global citizens. I think it's important to start promoting that type of usage of technology. It's like, technology is part of the greater good rather than for cyberbullying. Another thing we've seen a lot recently has been, what do you call that? Squatting or something like that, where there's
Swatting.
Swatting. Mhm.
SWAT, which is, phone calling in to, false alarms to wreak havoc in buildings and certain things like that. So, and these things have become increasingly popular, unfortunately, over the years. And so I think it'd be good for us as a district to start taking a more proactive stance on promoting digital wellness. And like, technology can be such a wonderful thing if it's used responsibly, but it can also be very detrimental if it's not used responsibly. So I'm open to your ideas of what you think. Those are some of the reasons why I, had wanted to discuss this in committee, for those main reasons. So I'm open to hearing your thoughts.
Perfect. I'm gonna do Jeff and then I'll bring it back to Ms. Henry. Jeff, you have the floor.
Okay. So this is a question that comes up in districts all over the nation all the time. It's actually, obviously, like it's been mentioned, it's increasingly more of a hot topic because of things like swatting and cyberbullying and things like that. And we especially in the ITS department, have to deal with this on a continual basis because we literally combat that stuff continuously, defending that. So I think that that's a very good idea. There are a whole host of different resources that are available specifically for K-12 school districts on this exact topic. There's also curriculums. And I think most of them are, and I don't want to, speak out of turn, but I believe most of them are freely available because there are federal ones and then there are also state ones. So, if you go and you want to implement this, there's basically like an assessment that, they take a section and it says, at certain ages, this is what you should be doing with your equipment. And obviously we see most of the acting out, it starts in middle school and interestingly, it mostly hangs out in the middle school and then it tends to taper off because they've, in high school, we don't see it, believe it or not, as much. So like definitely hitting those target areas first, I think is important. And, by having them kind of take that wellness, at least we could say, we did go through this with you. So that's at least what has been happening out there. So if I can recommend that, like looking at the different curriculums that are available and determining how to implement those as appropriate. So.
Thank you. Ms. Henry?
I completely agree. I think it's definitely something that we want to get out ahead of, and talk about often. I think that social work and guidance counselors can certainly be part of this and should potentially be part of this conversation. And whether they're doing mini lessons in the classroom on the curriculums that Jeff discussed and that sort of thing. And then the teachers are reinforcing it with their students every time they open a device. I think that how we message it to our students is going to be important. And if we come from an SEL lens with social work and guidance, it's a nurturing setup versus you guys have done something wrong. Now we're going to fix it and we're going to teach you how not to do it. Whereas I'm assuming we want to brand it along the lines of, really care about you guys. We want to make sure that you have the skills you need to use technology safely and appropriately. And here's how we're going to help you. So I do think social work and guidance would be helpful in this conversation. And then on a larger scale, the teachers are involved in the reminders with the kids. But I think potentially if you do move forward with this, a rollout with an SEL community and team would be helpful.
I think that's really good. Ms. Perrin, Albert, sorry.
I'll have Ms. Perrin first.
Okay, Ms. Perrin.
So I definitely agree that the SEL connection is extremely important. Specifically, if we look at one of the things that we're doing as a district already when it comes down to student success days, we're working on them creating these success plans. So what better way to be able to introduce something about digital wellness, something that we know that is going to be impacting their life, as teaching them how to be responsible with the technology that they have. So I think it would be a great partnership to be able to work with the social worker and our guidance counselors to be able to do that, and then create space within those student success days to do some work around this every single month to help build the capacity of that as well.
Absolutely. I agree.
Love
Mr.
that.
Benham?
I agree with everyone, but like always say, education starts home. And I know we in the schools and the social work. I don't want the school and social work have the whole job doing everything.
I
We
agree.
need to send this message to the parents.
Yes.
Whatever we have to do with the parent, this is what happened. This is when you're not responsible. Watch what your kid is watching. I believe the parent paid the cell phone of the kid. I know when I pay my cell phone with my kid, I know my kids have a password, but I know the password. I know what he's watching. I know what he's doing. I know something when it's high school, of course, parents, something when they're high school, but do not, it's good to let them know the parent, this is the consequence.
Correct.
This is what happened.
Right.
You break the policy, you break the law and everything, do this, do that. So parent, they can know what's going on, because I don't want people to say, oh, the school, oh, the social work.
Right.
No,
It's
we're not here to babysit everyone. We're here to work with everyone, to educate everyone, to be sure everybody have a good successful. But I don't want the people to think spiritual school is the one responsible. We need to show the parent, you have the role. You have to be more responsible of your kid, of what's going on with social media. So I just want to say that.
So maybe adding the PAC as a part,
Absolutely.
talk
Absolutely.
Ms.
Marlon.
Lynn
Ms. Russia.
and Ms. Rocha and get them on board, because even then, I know we talked about, and this is going into your section, but just like, if we're going to educate the students, we could also educate the parents. I don't know, Jeff, is there any
So,
in that curriculum?
Yeah, what I would recommend is, our academic support team, which is in the technology department, can work to check what other districts have available for curriculums, and also look at what we have, because there are actually federally recognized standards, and there are state ones as well. What they could do is collect that together. I don't know if that lands in this committee or student and families, but basically, we can provide that so that you can look at it and select what is the best, most appropriate
And
one.
teaching and learning, that's.
Teaching and learning, that was what I was trying to realize, yeah.
Teacher learning too, yeah.
So, maybe what we could do is talk to the chairs of those committees and get it as an agenda item on their committee. So at least all three committees are in the same space.
Yeah.
So that we're all talking about the same thing when it comes to this particular agenda item.
That's right.
Go ahead, Ms. Perry.
One other thing also, As we were at the PAC roundtable last night, we were there for the restorative practices piece. So one of the things they talked about doing was creating the charter, of course, and that's part of restorative practices. So my thoughts are, as my wheels start going around this, if we create charters about what digital wellness looks like within our schools, parents could do that at home as well, so that you make the connection to be there. So that way, it's not just something they're hearing in one direction, and we could share that and we build it together.
I see no objections. I love it. Sounds great. Ms. Castillo, this was your agenda item. Does this kind of like tap into what you're thinking? And is there anything you would like, outside of what Jeff is suggesting, and also Ms. Henry, is there anything else that we can give to them to look into and bring back to committee so we can start getting the ball rolled on this? You're muted.
Sorry. I think everybody has contributed, such a unique addition to this like very small seed of an idea that I had. So I appreciate you guys really expanding and stretching your brains to make this exciting. I feel very excited about it. And I think that, the next time that we
see you. We can see you smile.
I think the next time that we come together and when we invite, some of the other necessary voices to be part of the conversation, we can kind of develop a fruitful framework of how we can roll out some exciting ideas for the next year.
Perfect.
Sound good.
Sounds amazing. So that's what we'll do, Ms. Henry and Jeff. We'll come back, and I would just suggest to either myself or anyone on our committee to, when we have our next regular board meeting, that we refer this out to the other two committees so they also can be working on it simultaneously. But then, as our committee will be the lead on it for the most part, we'll come back, we'll discuss, bring those voices back, and then we'll start, giving it skin.
Great.
To
Jeff and I will connect with Carly and Lynn and Dee, social work, guidance, family, and we can start to build ideas internally to share with you all.
Perfect. Yep, Mr. Benahan.
Talking about this, and this is very good. Can be a workshop for the parent convention to help the parents and them, to be technology. And I will let them know.
More hours, Ms. Castillo's about to smile the whole camera.
So I will let them know the committee, because next week I'm having a meeting with the committee, stuff like that. So just want to work that will be technology. We in 2023. Soon we're going to be 2023. We 2022, and everything changed. We had to prepare parent to be against, negative and bad consequence.
Yep.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ms. Henry. And then we're on our last agenda item. This one is discussion and possible action on steps to hire a PR company for the districts to advertise job opening opportunities and press release. So this was actually brought up. Mr. Lombard had suggested this a while back when the departments were presenting, and one of the things we noticed was that there wasn't a lot of people. There wasn't a lot of teachers or staff coming to our district, either because we don't have the money to pay for them, or two, we don't advertise it on our own. I know in the past, Mr. Testani had shared that most of the advertising that we do as far as PR and stuff goes through the city. And we've never, from the time that I've been on the board, we haven't had an individual who works for the district to do that for us so they could be in the forefront. So Mr. Lombard had, brought it what if we could contract a PR company and they can, for a certain amount of time, we contract them instead of hiring a staff member salary wise, we could bite the bullet with this. So this is just an idea. We don't know, we haven't written anything out yet, but we just want to know, is this something that we can do? Are we even financially able to do it? If not, what can we look forward to in the next year to possibly push this to the full board to see something like this happen? Because with all the great things that we're doing within the district, there isn't a lot of broadcasting of our good efforts. For example, and board members can attest to this, we'll hear about a school, the swatting incident, and CT Post has picked it up before Ms. Perrin or her staff members can debunk any of the negativity. It's already out there. Parents are already in alarm. They're already calling us. They're panicking. And it's you didn't even, not saying anything negative about it, but the media gets to it before we as a district has had an opportunity to address it first. One thing that we talked about last year was trying to get ahead of the media, ahead of any negative press that may come out. But it's hard to do that when you have no one in-house to do it. PR company may be our best bet, but this is just open to dialogue and see what we can do. And I'll open it up to you, beautiful people. So go ahead.
Okay, I think this is a great idea. As long as we have the budget for it, I think it's a great idea, because I know that PR companies will work with you on an ad hoc basis. So, you know, some PR companies have crisis management as part of their servicing. So if something comes up, you know, we can call our crisis management person, our consultant at the PR firm, and get their advice on what is, what's the best move going forward. I do think that especially the crisis management piece is such a specialized type of thoughtfulness. And I do think it takes an expert to be able to advise on those types of things. You want to make sure that you get it right, especially when you're, the voice on behalf of the largest district in the state of Connecticut, and I think the heart of this committee has always been to kind of elevate our brand and elevate, how we're presenting, because we want to look like we're the biggest district in the state, and we've got the most going on, and we're the brightest and the most amazing and all the, and so anyway, PR firms really have that level of expertise to be able to deliver on that, and they offer their services in an a la carte kind of way. So, I noticed that, for example, Norwalk has been running billboard advertisements, recruiting teachers to come work in Norwalk, and I'm not sure how effective the billboards have been in getting generating interest, but it definitely gives the impression that Norwalk's expanding, and I have to say it irks me to see those boardwalks in Bridgeport, So, in an increasingly competitive market, if we see that our competitors or our neighboring towns or districts that look like us are doing these types of things to get qualified and credentialed people to come work for their district, then maybe we want to consider doing similar things. And that's something that I think a PR firm would be able to assist us with. So some ideas, I definitely agree that it's a good idea, but of course we have to get into the granulars about budget and what that looks like.
Thank you. Mr. Benahan, would you like to share the feedback?
No, I'm okay.
No? Ms. Perrin, and then we'll go to our staff.
No, I just want to hear about from you guys.
Okay. So staff that's online, feel free. Sure, Ms. Dixon.
So I'm listening to you and I hear multiple different aspects of what you're looking for. A PR company to help brand our image as a district. And to be, as you said, Ms. Castillo, a crisis response team, basically. How do we diffuse or get ahead of the media and put our own image or response or description of what happened? And I think that's great. And then I hear the other part of a PR firm regarding what we do for recruiting. So these, I think, are two separate things. So from the recruiting point of view, I agree those billboards were a little painful, but I did look into this. So a lot of the things when I took over for HR, I looked into all these different things. I looked into the billboards, but unfortunately, budget-wise, it didn't make sense to run these billboards. It was extremely expensive. And then to get the prime locations, it was even more expensive. So we did last year, we did run a radio ad, and we had the students come up with, I don't know if anyone heard it last year, but we had students talk about coming into Bridgeport. From the HR point of view, what we have done differently is that we've expanded on our mass social media.
Mhm.
We also, we have a contract with an online company that they handle a lot of the virtual job fairs. So we had that in the works. As far as advertising or where we post our jobs, we do it internally. We do it on CT Reap. We do it on Indeed. I post some of the big major jobs on LinkedIn. I know a lot of my colleagues put it on their social media. We resumed having job fairs. I'm actually, thanks to our new director of special ed, Shemaine Johnson, she suggested I look into Handshake, which is a direct connection to different local universities. So I looked into that, and I'm exploring on how to post on those websites. We also recruit directly. Our biggest recruitment is through our local universities and making use of the partnerships we have. So, I think ultimately, and I know Marlene is on this online, it comes down to what we can do financially. I mean, believe you me, I would love to have the billboards. I would love to have all of the postings everywhere we can, but financially it didn't make sense. We have to, one of the drawbacks we face already is that financially we cannot match the incomes or the salaries offered by our neighbors. So, when I think, okay, if I spend $100,000 a year for billboards for 6 months, or could this be something that maybe we can, rather than spend it there, could this be something maybe towards increasing salaries when we do hire? Recently, we have been more generous with salaries due to the nature of the beast that the shortage of teachers. But I think, unfortunately, ultimately comes down to finances. Can we afford to do this? And is it financially wise to do it? I don't, I'm trying to think of something we did recently. We look into account, like, for example, the radio. Unfortunately, we don't know what, if any, success that radio ad was produced in our hiring, but I do know getting out in the community, and I think focusing on our resources we have has made the best and most impact in our hiring recently.
Thank you. I would also say too, while we're talking about this conversation, and that's why I invited Ms. Siegel, is because do we have an advertising budget? Do we have allotted monies to the side that we can look at and possibly say, okay, 20% or 40% of that will go towards advertising for jobs, and then the other set of it goes towards anything else that we could probably find that will do PR for within our district, or whatever the case may be. So that was the very gist of having Ms. Marlene, because before we can even decide on any of that, that's why I put it the way I did, to see what we do have and how we are using it, and maybe that's a thought that as we move forward within the district, of how we can start allocating dollars for things like that if we do come across new monies, or if there's any space for that. Because honestly, being the biggest district is great, but we still need all that great support that all of these other companies and schools are doing. Like I work for a company, but we have PR agencies that we pay to do all the nitty gritty. So everything that you're talking about, they would give you a whole plan, one for recruiting, one for strict advertising, and then one for, whatever crisis management. They'll give you a whole package, but you got to have a budget. So, so I'm going to see what Miss Marlene, if Miss Marlene would like to add. Hey, this has been a while since we've seen your face. Good to see you, Miss Siegel. It's been a while.
We have a standard budget. It is limited, of course, for recruitment activities. Now, as Denise indicated, there are already multiple activities underway for recruitment, we have 2 full-time teachers working in the HR office on recruitment and university partnerships, 2 full-time teachers. We also have a retired principal who is working part-time, 2 to 3 days a week, assisting for this year. It's a temporary assignment for this year. As Denise indicated, there have been radio ads in the past, but there isn't any way to align the results of recruitment efforts directly to those radio advertisements. In terms of a PR firm, I think you need to specify in very detailed terms exactly what you want a PR firm to accomplish. And you would need to write a request for proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And we would need to limit in that proposal the range of funding for the firm. In other words, they would not have unlimited capacity to specify a dollar amount. We would need to indicate, for example, that we would like to have a proposal for the following types of services within a certain time period, and it would be limited to 25,000 to 50,000, for example. Now, we do not have that amount of money allocated at this time for a PR firm. I believe you said that when Mr. Lombard made the recommendation, his intention was to substitute the salary of a staff member for the cost of this new initiative. So he was looking at an operational efficiency proposal. Right. So there are many considerations. But as Denise indicated when she started to respond, I think you're merging multiple objectives. And I would strongly recommend that you establish your priorities. Are you interested in hiring a PR firm for crisis management situations where if a crisis arises, you can reach out to that firm on an ad hoc basis to provide guidance and to write a notice to the public that will help to restore or maintain a positive image for Bridgeport? That's one objective. I don't think we need a PR firm to develop a recruitment plan for us. I think we're well aware of all of the types of initiatives in which we can engage, such as the billboards and the radio ads.
Mm-hmm.
The former superintendent decided after trying the radio ads that he was not going to fund any additional radio ads because he did not believe that those ads had resulted in an increase in teachers coming to Bridgeport. And I would just like to add that we have been very generous in our salary offers. Now we have to follow equitable procedures. We enforce the contract, which means that we have to examine the educational background of the candidate, as well as the experience. We have some latitude in interpreting the types of experience that individuals have. We can also add one or two steps for shortage areas. And in applying those equitable standards, we have been more generous in terms of the number of steps that we can add for a shortage area, as an example. So I think we have taken every possible step in the current year and will continue to do so in the future to stay competitive with our neighboring districts.
Thank you. And this is also, I'm not sure if it's the difference for Mr. Benahan and Ms. Castillo, but this is news to me to know that we have staff that are doing that. I personally didn't know that, or maybe I didn't hear it correctly. So I'm glad that I now know that, because like you said, Mr. Lombard, that was his suggestion. Like, if we don't have a staff member or individual doing it, let's, get a PR firm. But this is good news in a sense, because I didn't know that. I don't know if anyone else did, but I'm glad that you both shared that, because we didn't have any knowledge on it.
And I would just add that the recruitment unit within the HR office was instrumental and under Denise's guidance in creating the cross-certification programs that the superintendent, a former superintendent, authorized. I had made various proposals last year to resurrect the cross-certification programs. We had been involved with Octel for ESL teachers, where existing teachers agreed to enter into a cross-certification degree program. And the district pays the tuition on condition that the teacher works at least 3 years for Bridgeport after obtaining the degree, or while they're pursuing the degree or the cross certification. So my point is that we resurrected the Octel program, which had been in place a few years ago, and then it was not pursued for a year or two. We resurrected that program. We also resurrected the cross certification program for special ed teachers, so that teachers who elementary school teachers, for example, or teachers with other certified in other subject areas who wanted to pursue a teaching position in special ed could enter into the cross certification program. I think we have 7 or 9 special ed fellows at this point in that program. But we can't do that alone. Denise needs support to initiate those programs and manage those programs. Each teacher has to sign a memorandum of understanding and a promissory note, for example. So there's extensive work involved in making these programs operational. And the recruitment and university partnership unit within the HR office is instrumental in supporting the HR office in bringing those programs to fruition. All right. So you should be aware that those programs are very important. Do we still have vacancies in shortage areas? Yes, we still have some vacancies in special education. I think the bilingual and ESL department has done a tremendous job in filling those vacancies. And in many respects, we may be performing better in terms of the fill rate for positions than some of our neighboring districts. I don't have the data, but I just tend to think in light of the results in the bilingual ESL area, and even in special ed, while we are disappointed that we still have these vacancies, principals are still submitting recommendations to hire, and the numbers are declining over time. They're also reaching out to the colleges on an ongoing basis. Denise has organized virtual recruitment fairs as well as in-person recruitment fairs. So I think we're well aware of the types of efforts that we need to undertake and will undertake to ensure that Bridgeport remains in a highly competitive position.
Thank you. Did Miss? Oh, you're muting, Miss Dixon.
All right, sorry, if I can add to that, right? So as Marlene said, right now I have 2 full-time teachers, Michael Brosnan and Stephen Correa. And sorry, something's popping up on my computer. Okay, and Stephen just joined us, I think, recently. And I got to tell you that they have done wonders. Michael Brosnan is very instrumental in creating different partnerships and working on these different partnerships. One thing he worked with at Southern, and I think I indicated this at one of the meetings, was we are focusing on our current staff, paraprofessionals who have bachelor's degrees who want to become teachers in special ed. And we have 4 currently enrolled in this partnership program where we are offsetting the tuition. And like, as Marlene said, in return, they sign a promissory note, which they agree to continue working with us. So with the creations of partnerships, we have been able to increase definitely special ed positions, but unfortunately the continued shortage across the nation for teachers and everything. But, you know, as I indicated, I think our biggest strength is tapping into the resources we have within. And that is seeing if some of our current teachers in the more popular areas, such as elementary, the areas that are easier to fill, if they're willing to get cross-endorsed, or if they have the other endorsement, you know, we are trying to offer them financial incentives to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Benahan, would you like to add?
No, you can, Ms. Castillo, go first.
Ms. Castillo?
Yeah, I did have one question, just out of curiosity. Marlene, you had mentioned, or Miss Siegel, my apologies. You had mentioned that, you know, we had begun the process of resurrecting some of the partnerships that we have with local universities to, you know, to start kind of cultivating some of that local talent. What universities are you working with?
Well, Octel is actually a collaborative effort through ACES, which is one of the regional education centers. The cross-certification in special education, I believe, is with CREC, another regional education center. And the Para-to-Teacher program that Denise mentioned is through Southern Connecticut State University.
Okay. Do we plan on expanding it to include other institutions, or is it that through our partnership with ACES, for example, that other institutions are included in that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say we do. We are working with Sacred Heart. We are working with actually, we've been trying to work with Housatonic because they have a lot of paraprofessionals who are starting to work with Housatonic for paraprofessionals, and then that would lead into them becoming teachers, whether it's at Southern. We just started talking with Western Governors, which is an online credit school, and also Grand Canyon University, which is another online. So these are all universities that we're exploring that not only offer programs online, go at your own pace, but like financial assistance and things. So we are definitely looking into expanding, whether it's partnerships, specific programs, or partnerships in the sense that we can help our teachers or the community to get the basic credits, or even our current staff to get additional education and training on different areas.
Okay. You know, I guess my question is more specifically about University of Bridgeport, since they're right in our backyard, and I know they have a master's program. I worked at UB for 8 years, and I know that they during my time there, they had a program where students could work, you know, and in exchange, the district would pay the tuition and what have you. I just not sure if it was with the Bridgeport Public School District, you know, or if we were partnering with them in any way. So what is, do we have any relationship with University of Bridgeport? Does anyone know?
I know we have some of our residency programs. I'm not sure if they're specifically with University of Bridgeport, but I know that Michael Brosden maintains contact with the University of Bridgeport. As far as the specifics, I'm sorry, I don't recall if it's with University of Bridgeport, our residency program, or
I believe
yes.
that the residency program is with SHU, Sacred Heart
Okay.
University.
Well, anyhow, if it's worth mentioning, I think the value of recruiting from University of Bridgeport is, of course, they're in our backyard. They're very familiar with the community, with the city. So, why not? I know I happen to work for Quinnipiac full time. So I know Quinnipiac has a school of education as well that also does placements in the local area. So, there's opportunity to pair. And I know that students, excuse me, I was diagnosed with COVID this morning, guys. So I'm really like hanging on here. So
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Feel better.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Anyway, I know that college students, of course, are always looking for different internship opportunities and might be worth exploring those options.
I'll definitely talk to Michael Brosnan and Steve Correa and them to look into Quinnipiac.
and Denise, how many student teachers do we have in the district currently?
Ooh,
Approximately.
60, I want to say. And I know right now we are in the process of snatching up as many as we can. I just had a few of the principals at our administrators meeting today tell me that they have student teachers. I'm like, send in your recs to hire. We will work with them. The nice thing is that all these student teachers, they're finishing up their student teaching, and that means all they have to do is sit for the exam. So we get to hire them as a pending certified teacher. And it's not through Kelly Services. They are hired through the Board of Ed.
That's good. That's really good news.
I also wanted to mention that within our operational structure, we are getting ready to implement Frontline Central. Now, Frontline Central is going to interconnect with Frontline Applitrack. So if you're familiar with Applitrack, that is our automated recruitment system. It's been in operation for about 10 years. You can find it on our website in the staff portals. But Frontline Central is going to bring us into the modern age because it will allow us to do electronic onboarding and electronic files. Now, this is not only important for the productivity of the office, so the staff can redirect their efforts to recruitment and other important tasks rather than routine paperwork or sending out emails with multiple documents. But also it sends a message to prospective candidates when they arrive at the office. They will see a modern, fully electronic office that can complete the onboarding process in an expeditious manner.
Nice. Mr. Benahan?
I know we bring this an agenda. Why the reason we bring this agenda? That something's wrong or we not?
So Mr. Lombard had talked about when the presentation was done with the staff for the different departments, that we felt, well, it was expressed that, there needed to be more recruitment efforts to get teachers. So that's only just one part. Like Ms. Marley, there's multiple parts to it.
Yeah,
But then also too, when we had issues with the swatting taking place with students, false alarms and stuff like that, how the media picked it up before our interim could even respond to it, which created a great alarm.
Yeah.
And then the third one is overall just messaging to get our story out about the district highlights are good things. So Mr. Lombard has said, well, and I don't know if he knew this, and like I said, we just learned this tonight, that Ms. Dixon actually has 2 individuals working with her that are on the recruiting side of things. So now as I'm sitting here, I'm like, maybe it's not the recruiting area that we need to think about a PR agency. Maybe it's crisis management, or maybe it's our overall messaging. So that's kind of where the conversation came. So I wanted to bring it to this committee because he did bring it, to our attention. So I was like, I would ask and see if this is even doable or not.
Okay.
So that was pretty
Thank
much
you.
it. With that being said, so now that we know that knowledge that you just shared with us via that we have staff members that are dedicated to the recruiting side, we'll leave that side alone. Because I didn't know that we had individuals. I literally it was not explained to us the way that you just explained it to us. So we're just like, we have nobody, and we ourselves are doing the extra work to get this done. So I didn't know that. So then, to Ms. Siegel's point, maybe we need to find a focus and maybe talk about if that focus is even what we need to do, or maybe just start the conversation about it. So I'm going to go back to Ms. Castillo's point about having crisis management, because I think that's one thing that crisis management, and also to highlighting all the good things that are happening in our district. But I think what scares parents more than anything is when doing it local or one of those other organizations here before our superintendent or any of our district announces it, before we can even clear it up, I think is always something that every district will combat. But I think we get hit the hardest because we are the largest. So maybe that could be a starting point to maybe talk about getting a PR company involved in some way, if it is feasible budget wise. But I just, now that Ms. Siegel's mentioned, like, what do you guys think about that, if that's even something that we can do? Ms. Castillo?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good start. I to start with the crisis management piece. I think it's a very essential thing to have for a district our size, where things happen all the time. I'm not sure how you feel, Mrs. Perrin, or Miss Perrin. Having that resource at your discretion. I used to work at a pre-K through 12 school in Stanford, and it was a private school. And our director of marketing and communications specialized in crisis management. And even she, as good as she was about messaging and getting the response down in a timely manner, even she had a consultant that she would call and get their opinion. Ultimately it was up to her still to decide how, what the school's response was going to be. But sometimes there's things that happen even on a national level. If there's a situation that needs maybe needs to be addressed, even if it didn't happen in our backyard. Like sometimes it's, I know when I was at King, there was a situation that happened. There was a string of attacks against the AAPI community post-COVID. And there was a couple of, there was a series of attacks. And so it's like, do we want to address that in our community and let our AAPI students know that
teachers,
that we're supporting them, and here's the resources with the counseling team, and also just making a statement condemning the attacks, and it's not a matter of responding to things that only happen in our backyard. Sometimes it's a matter of just being proactive and letting the district know that, we're here for you. We understand your plight. We're a community. We're together. We're a big family, So I think it was definitely a good resource to have, during my time at that school. And considering, Bridgeport's like a lot of schools, I think it might maybe be a beneficial resource to have. And I am still interested perhaps in pursuing the RFP process, because there's a possibility that maybe this won't be as expensive as we think it might be, So anyway, I would definitely do some legwork, Bobby, and maybe send you some bullet points of how I think a PR firm for crisis management would be beneficial to the district. and we can start there with outlining an RFP. If we decide, if we decide that, that not the PR firms that come in are not a match for what we're looking for, we don't have to go with anybody, but at least we did the due diligence of exploring the option.
It's also possible, if I may add, that a PR firm would charge on a per service basis.
Yes.
Similar to the way that a legal firm charges
Correct.
for services. And so that's another reason why it would be important to specify the types of services, and then the firm could indicate the rate or the additional costs for various types of associated services for the particular task.
Correct.
And we could indicate that we would anticipate setting a reasonable range for this type of service over the course of a year. So if the board were to decide, for example, we don't want to spend more than $20,000 next year with the firm that is ultimately selected, we would just keep track of the services, obviously, that are contracted over time and track the total cost.
I absolutely agree. And, kind of like Ms. Castillo, that's kind of what I do for the company that I work for. I literally so most of them are grant based. So we select certain grants that will be covered under that specific contract. And we don't go no higher, no less based off of what we allotted for them. And they're not allowed to do that either. So that also lets us know that for fiscal year 2023, you're only here till June of 2023 until the money runs out, and that's your specific contract year. So that's why when Mr. Lombard brought it to us, that's not a bad idea, because then we don't have to really put so much. We can choose what we want to put towards it, and then that also is dwindled down on which companies will be willing to take us on for that particular project. So yeah, that was the thinking behind it. So you're absolutely in the lane that I was thinking, Ms. Siegel.
And in that particular case, we would most likely be writing a request for qualifications, an RFQ. So when we issued the request related to legal services, we wrote an RFQ, request for qualifications, not an RFP, request for proposal. So the various firms would submit a list of services and bill rates, usually hourly rates or total cost rates.
Perfect. Miss Perrin?
I definitely think that specifically what you were just speaking about, Ms. Brown and Ms. Siegel, in regards to the crisis management, basically in the current climate that we're in, to be able to provide some guidance in this climate. I think that would be a great idea for that. It's funny that we were talking about this tonight, because today at the admin council meeting, I created our own in-house crisis management plan. So we just shared that because it was just about, when things happen, we need to try to know what lanes that we need to take, at least in district, to be able to communicate with people. So I think it would be very valuable to be able to do that, especially because we don't know what's going to happen. And the news absolutely does get word of things way before I even get my hands on it to be able to communicate. So if we have someone available to be able to reach out to craft that so that we could get it out, I think it would be a great idea.
Absolutely. Mr. Bingham, any thoughts? So what we'll do, I guess we could talk about possibly next steps. If we're going to go the lane of crisis management, we would need to be able to craft some type of bullet points to Ms. Castillo's point as to what we would like that message or that request to be. And then we can bring it back to you guys, and we can discuss this at our next meeting, and we can continue to hash it out until we feel comfortable with what we're looking to request, and then go from there. I know Mr. Pyrus is up there, so I don't know if you want to add anything. I know you're sitting there patiently, so I don't want to not leave you without being able to say your piece. Thank
you, Ms. Brown. Every point that you touched on is accurate. We could construct the RFQ. We just need the bullet points in terms of what the requirements would be from the agency that would provide those services. and we can get those out. Now, I want you to understand that the process that it normally takes. So once we develop this RFQ, typically it goes to our contracts committee, they review it, they approve it, and then it goes to the full board, they review it, they approve it, and then we, release it out to the field so that they can, the agencies can respond to it and so forth. I think because it's an RFQ, it's probably less involved in terms of the scoring and in terms of the selection process. But in any event, it's still a rather lengthy process. So if you're looking for something to happen within the next month or so, it's probably unrealistic to expect that. But understand that the process is a little lengthier than it's normal, only because of the controls that we have in place.
Absolutely. I don't think we were wanting to rush on this at all, because obviously we would want it to live past our tenure or whatever the case may be. So I don't think there's a major rush, because now, like I said, now that, some of the information Ms. Dixon and all of you guys have shared really put this in perspective for us. So we know it's going to take some time. So I'm definitely okay with that. And I'll ask Ms. Castillo.
Yeah, so I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the RFP that we are preparing or that we prepared for superintendent, legal looked at it before it was posted. So Mr. Pires, is that also a step that we should consider? And if so, at what point should the language be shown to legal?
The language will be shown to legal as soon as I receive from you guys the scope of the work and all of the objectives that we're looking for. The legal language is pretty much standard, although it changes from an RFP to an RFQ. But that should turn around fairly quickly. So as soon as I have the goals and objectives for the RFQ, then I can just submit that to legal, and it's a fairly quick turnaround. I don't think it says.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm done.
I was going to say, what is the difference between RFP and RFQ?
An RFQ is a request for qualifications, and an RFP is a request for proposals. So the proposals are more involved because it involves a specific cost, it involves specific activities. An RFQ is just basically requesting qualifications from a company that claims that they're qualified to do the certain type of work that we're asking them to do.
Okay.
And then basically with the RFP, we're considering the lowest bidder. The cost factor is calculated within the rating formula. With the RFQ, we are not limited to the application of a specific rating formula. We are evaluating the qualifications of the company. Obviously, we have to consider the cost factors, but the qualifications can supersede the cost factor. So if there's one company that has a much lower cost factor, but we don't think they are as qualified, we can select the more qualified vendor.
Correct.
All right.
Great.
So what I would suggest is that for this meeting is that we'll add this to the agenda for the next meeting to hash out the objectives and goals and what we want. And then before moving it forward, I'm going to invite you guys back. So like, even if it's okay, then we can talk about it and see if it makes sense for the RFQ. So it makes a little bit more sense. And we're going down the right lane before we pass it on to contracts and the full board. Because I want to make sure it's, well polished enough so that it makes sense to them that are going to be the whole entire board that's going to vote on it. Is that okay?
That's fine.
That's okay with you?
Right, yeah.
All right. So without further ado, there's, besides adding it as agenda item to continue this conversation, there's nothing left on our agenda. So at this moment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Benahan, second by Ms. Castillo. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you, Ms. Siegel. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you. Good
All
evening.
right. Thank
So,
Take care.
feel
Bye.
better, Ms. Castillo.
Thank you.
Yeah.